Hi everybody, my name is Jo and I love to read. This is a prelude to today's video, which is the September and October 2025 reading wrap up. Yes, you're hearing that correctly, even though this video is releasing in February. I am behind on editing and releasing videos. It's also giving me a really cool opportunity to add some stats to the start of this reading wrap up, which I have not done before, but I want to start doing going ahead. I will also be jumping in at certain points because I also forgot to describe in a spoiler-free way what these books are about, and I think that's a really key part in wrap-ups, so this also gives me the opportunity to add that in as well. I've got 4 books to talk about for these 2 months. I read 1 illustrated novel, 1 manga, and 2 novels. The genres were children's fantasy, historic fantasy, mange, shoujo, and YA fantasy. Now, just a caveat to the manga, I have never tried to categorize the genres of manga before. This has come from a Google search and I'm also new at pronouncing them. I have done a bit of research, but obviously new words and new language, I'm gonna get things wrong a little bit of the time. Mange shoujo is translated to magical girl. It is a subgenre that is aimed at teenage girls and it features a female main character who has magical powers. I have read 1 on hardback, 1 on hardback and ebook, 1 paperback, and 1 exclusively on ebook. I started but didn't finish 1, I finished 2, and I DNF'd 1. I kept 2, I on-hauled 1, and 1 was an ebook sample that I decided not to purchase the full copy because I DNF'd it. Technically, it's also got to include books that I've started in this finished in this first half of November. I had gallbladder surgery, so I had my gallbladder removed. I tried to film this wrap up before that happened, which was the start of November. It was like perfect at the right timing, and I got all my makeup on, did my hair, went into the room, turned my camera on, and my husband rang me. So and then we had a good conversation, which took up the entire time that I had to film. The first book that I just want to briefly mention is I'm still working my way through Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix on Illustrated. It may seem silly to give a bit of a summary of Harry Potter because it is probably one of the most popular books in the world ever at this stage, but you never know who has not heard of it, so let's give a recap of what Harry Potter's about. This is the 5th book in the series, but I'll just talk about the first one so there's no spoilers. Harry Potter is an orphan boy who's been taken in by his awful aunt and uncle and his cousin who has also learnt to be awful from his parents. But luckily for Harry, he learns that he is a wizard and there is a place for him at the exclusive wizard boarding school in England where he goes there, learns magic and finds some real friends and a real home. Picked it up again after birth, read a little bit of it. It's hard being so big and so physical. A lot of reading that I did while breastfeeding is on my e-reader. I'd just gotten to the point where I was getting consistent time to read after I'd had the baby, and then went to hospital again about a month later. Still didn't really finish it at this point because it is so heavy and so annoying to sit and read. I would also do only a couple pages before bed because I was also writing a lot at this stage as well. And then I had my surgery and it's too heavy to lift. So I've got to wait even further. I seriously think that it is the first and only time that I'm going to read that book because it's so dang heavy. But while I was in hospital, all of these times, and with my recovery, I focused on 1 book mainly, getting a huge chunk of finish that I actually bought on ebook, but I have a copy itself, and that is The Armour of Light by Follett. The Armour of Light is the 5th book in the Kingsbridge series, but I can actually talk about this specific book in a bit more detail and remain spoiler free because they are standalones in an interconnected series. This one is in the late 1700s and the 1800s. It's during the Industrial Revolution in England, where we are getting more technology, particularly in relation to people that work with wool and threads and fabrics. We are getting the invention of the spinning wheels, which are able to make things a lot quicker and we don't need to do so much handwork as they used to. and it's surrounding people that no longer have a living because of this, or they have less of a living than before. And it also covers the period when the Napoleonic wars were happening, and just a general real difficult time in history for people to make money and survive in, and how that goes over with them, and how the English government really tries to suppress the people, and because they're fearful of what has happened over in France and what Napoleon was fighting for, and how that affects the people whose lives that we are following. I finally got this big beast finished. This one has been actually a really good exercise for me as a writer, because I've quite clearly been able to see where Follett has gripped me and where he has not. Sadly, most of the book was not very gripping. There was still a lot of moments where I was gasping, making reactions. Unfortunately, Follett does a lot of telling in this book versus showing, and a lot of the emotion feels like it's been just scraped out of this. Now, to me, that's one of two reasons, but I don't know, or two reasons it could have been. One, his writing style has changed over time in a way that I personally don't enjoy, or this story was too big to tell in one volume, and the publishers told him to scrape a lot of stuff away from it. I wouldn't take anything from this book, I would just add a lot. I really wish that a lot of emotion had been added. I am going to be doing a deep dive video into this. I'm still intending to read more of his stuff. I've got the first in the Century trilogy right there. I was tempted by his new release, but I want to read that old trilogy first before I decide whether to continue on. If you're interested in a deeper dive of a video about Ken Follett's Kingsbridge series, I'm mainly going to focus on the first two and the last one. So if you're interested in that, subscribe, hang around. The other book I finished is a manga, Sailor Moon Volume 2 by Naoko Takeuchi. Sailor Moon is about a teenage girl who discovers that her cat can talk, and she has magical powers that she must learn how to wield because the people from the Dark Kingdom have come to Earth and are sucking the life out of the humans. There's a mysterious romance and a whole cast of superhero women who are also very close friends. This one I started, again, pre-baby, I think I started it in pregnancy, but pre-birth of baby, and I finally finished it after I had my gallbladder taken out. I enjoyed the start of this one a lot more than the first volume, because the first one, unfortunately, someone having grown up watching and loving the American anime, the first one felt really repetitive because we were being introduced to all of the Sailor Moon Guardians, and that part of the anime I've watched to death. Interestingly though, I have never actually properly finished the anime. I have this glorious nostalgic picture in my head of Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask, but when I've tried to rewatch the anime as an adult, it hasn't held up and it hasn't held my attention, unfortunately. And I'm sad to say that I think that's the same with the manga for me. I am so sad about this. It's not as deep or as dark as what I was hoping it was going to be, or it was too quick. If I knew about no other mangas, and if there was no other mangas in the world, I probably would continue it on. But there are so many more that I'm really excited to read that I don't really want to spend more time and money at this point on ones that I'm not as interested in. So I'm gonna unhaul this, and I'm also gonna unhaul the first volume. I also don't think these are super pretty. I know these are the more accurate editions, they're new translations, but the spine, so boring to me. The covers are cute. I kind of wish it was a full thing instead of framed. The art style is beautiful. I really like the art style. But ultimately, they don't look pretty on my shelves to me, and I'm just thinking that they're boring. The final book that I want to talk about is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This one was a part of my video series, which is reading the earliest added book to my TBR, to my wish list. Unfortunately, this one is a DNF. It is about this fairy tale-esque village. There is a forest that I don't know much about, but that is kind of dangerous. And we're also in this place where bad stuff can happen, and we need magic to help combat it. There is this wizard who lives in a tower. He's very mysterious. He lives in and is contracted by the ruling people to keep their particular area safe. Crops that went bad, possibly people that went sick for magical reasons, and he comes down and treats them. And as payment for that, once a year he takes a girl from the village. The girl that gets taken is generally the best, the smartest, the prettiest, that kind of thing. We think that it's going to be the main character's best friend, and then on the day, it's actually our main character that gets chosen. The stakes that weren't very high for me though is it's not like he takes the girl and they never see her again, or she dies, or she goes evil, or he uses her for evil things. All that happens is that they come back changed. So they always come back. They're changed. In what way? I don't know. And they want to live in the city. They're not happy with country living anymore. I found that the stakes were not high enough for me for that, really. I think the concept is interesting, but I wish it would have been more tragic. Thanks you guys so much for checking out my channel again. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. If you want to comment something but you don't know what to comment, then comment a book emoji, please. And I will talk to you guys next time. What was your best read for this past month?